Hi, teachers. Welcome to Session 6. We're going to be in Exodus chapter 16. Starting in verse 11, we'll be talking about provision given. Pastor Ben, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Miles. You work with teenagers.
I do.
As we've pointed out, I think in every single session that we've done. But I have a question. Have you ever been leading teenagers maybe to go on a trip, missions trip, camp, whatever, amusement park, various nursing homes, wherever you take teenagers,
as they do, yeah.
Wherever you take teenagers, have you ever been on that journey and found some of them complaining? Does that ever happen?
Oh no, they're always perfect angels all the time. I think what was really clear to me one time is we went to camp, and it was like blazing hot, and we just got there, and I remember the first 5 minutes, I started looking at their eyes, and then I was like, they're gonna start complaining.
Yeah.
And then because I was like trying to get all the luggage out because it was hot.
Yeah.
And then they started complaining like, "It's hot, Miles. Make it stop being so hot." And then so what we had to do is like had a quick conversation because for the next 5 days, I did not want to hear them say, "Hey, Miles, it's hot. Can you just do something about that?" And it tends to happen, but usually when you nip it in the bud, it helps. But they tend to complain sometimes, as do I.
I've been in like situations where it's amazing how our expectations rise to like technology. Like, you've ever been on a plane and like you get Wi-Fi, and so like you're doing it, and then all of a sudden the Wi-Fi goes out, and you're like, oh, yeah, stupid Wi-Fi.
You're the worst. But come back, I need you. Yeah.
And it was like 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. It's like I didn't even have an internet device that I needed Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Now I've got the device, and at 30,000 feet, I can talk to my friend.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The fact that you're 30,000 feet in the air too. You know, like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So like, it's amazing how like our all of a sudden our expectation is I need an unfettered connection to talk through this magic window to everybody I know while I'm flying across the nation on vacation. Like it's just amazing how quick we are to complain, right? And that's what we kind of find is the case. You know, the last lesson that we talked about, you were telling us about how that God, brought the victory in dealing with the Egyptians. He brought them across the Red Sea. They walk on dry land. And they get to the other side, and their enemy is wiped out. There's no more army. They're on their way to the promised land, and they're rejoicing. They're like absolutely rejoicing.
They're moved to worship and singing.
They're moved to worship, and rightly so. And what we talked about in just a few minutes ago as we made the last video is that we tend to think, I would do that too. I would in faith follow God's, God out of Egypt, and I would in faith, go through the Red Sea, and I would worship too. But now when they're talking about complaining, oh man, I wouldn't complain. What had God just done? I mean, he's so big and powerful. What are you doing?
Read the last chapter. Come on.
Right. And it's clear that we are not God in the story. We're probably not even Moses in the story all the time. We really are like the children of Israel,
Yes.
And that's a little bit of the context for today. We see the people grumbling and complaining. And before, I complain, I get tempted to complain a lot in a lot lower situations and like for a lot less than this, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we can learn about how God provides, and that's really what the theme of the lesson is: God's provision and how He provides.
Yes, sir. So our main point is going to be we can learn 3 truths about our need and God's provision that should inform how we live, and that'll bring us to our first point. Complaining demonstrates a lack of trust in God. And we'll start reading in Exodus 16, verse 11. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, At even ye shall eat flesh, and in the morning ye shall be filled with bread. Ye shall know that I am the Lord your God. And it came to pass that at even the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay round about the host. And when the dew that was lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness lay a small round thing, as small as the hoar frost on the ground. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, It is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat.
So you see, you kind of need to go back to verse 9 to really get the point of the complaining. But I put it in here because this is God's response to their complaining, right? If you look at back in verse number, let's see, verse 9, and Moses spake unto them, saying unto all the congregation of the Lord, congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmurings.
Yeah.
Murmuring, if you've been with any traveling group, teenagers.
Right.
You've heard the murmurings,
yeah.
I think of, what's his name? What's the Looney Tune character?
Oh,
with the beard and the Yosemite Sam.
Yosemite Sam, yeah. There you go.
He's grumbling. He's murmuring. So, and of course, as you lead through the whole thing, the whole past, they're talking about murmuring. Verse 7, in the morning that ye shall see the glory of the Lord, for he hath heard your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we that ye murmur against us? So Moses is frustrated because they're murmuring against God, and then they're murmuring against him. Like, Moses, what is he doing? And it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And so the Bible says that the Lord hears that and does provide for them. And like I said, we tend to think of ourselves as we wouldn't murmur about that. But, I mean, how many hours would it take where you don't have a lunch?
Oh, yeah.
You don't have a meal. You don't have a plan. It doesn't seem like you know what the plan for the meal is, that you would go, wait, where's the food?
Right. I'm murmuring by 1:00 if I didn't have lunch.
Exactly.
And then I'm murmuring at 2 because now I'm tired that I ate lunch. And
I skip a meal, I tell Megan, I'm like, hey, just so you know, I didn't have lunch today. So if you could chop on that dinner.
Does that work well?
It does not work well. But yeah, I mean, before we just absolutely destroy them, there's millions of people in the hundreds of thousands of people in the wilderness. There's no McDonald's. Right. There's no Einstein's Bagels. There's no, I'm using Jewish stuff. So
that was good.
Yeah, they don't know what the plan is, and so they're grumbling, they're complaining, and but God responds. They weren't trusting God, and to the point, we can say, we can give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, what had God just done for them? And that really is the legitimate point, right? Mm-hmm. God had brought them out of the sea with a mighty hand and outstretched arm. The Bible says he destroyed the gods of the enemies. Not that they didn't exist, but he destroyed the reputations. He destroyed the army. He destroyed the Egyptians. They don't have to worry about another army following after them. And now they're on their way to the promised land, and God had provided in all these other ways. Why? It doesn't even make a logical sense that he would get them do all of that work and then
just let them starve.
Oh man, I forgot to bring the Lunchables.
Yeah, right.
Like that doesn't even make sense. That God would provide. God's been miraculous, but yet we do the same thing, don't we? What are some ways that maybe we get there?
Yeah, I think you just start going through your day and you get into your routine, and then things start throwing off that routine and then you start thinking you deserve certain things. Like, I deserve to have this. I deserve to have food. I deserve to have shelter. I deserve to have respect. I deserve, and then we start, because complaining is all about us. We're mad because we didn't get what we deserve.
Right.
And it's not about our contentment and what.
And if we're honest, most of us listening to this podcast have rich people problems.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We I don't want Italian. I had Italian for lunch. You know what I mean? Like, in the context of history,
right?
Oh
yeah,
having style to your food is even a thing. Like, you just need calories. Like most of the world.
Right. I complain about my car breaking down. Well, good thing you have a car.
Right.
Don't have to walk everywhere.
Right.
And we take for granted the blessings he's already given us.
Oh my goodness, what he's done.
Right. And that's exactly what they're doing. But I love that he doesn't just smite them. He doesn't just say, I just got you out. I could totally do this. Let me get some new chosen people.
Right.
But he continues and loves them and provides for them.
To the details here, there's two things he provides in the midst of their complaining. One is quail.
Right.
And that is the small bird that they're easy to catch is the idea.
Yeah.
And then they have this new bread. This manna, which literally means, what is it? I think that I think the text is kind of funny. We do that too, don't we? Right. Sometimes, sometimes if there's not an answer, we just name it the question.
Right.
And so kind of how nicknames happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, what is it becomes the thing. Well, what are we eating? It's like, who's on first, right? What's on second? I don't know. That's on third base. So that's kind of what they do with it. What is it becomes this thing that they start to eat every day. So, so God responds to our complaining, and they were lacking trusting in God. And the good news is that God, like you said, provided even though they weren't doing their part,
right?
Which is interesting. And that leads us to point number 2.
Point number 2, yes, sir. It's trusting God for our needs is His desire, and we'll see this in verse 16 through 19. Starting in verse 16, it says, "This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded: gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every man, according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his tents. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered, some more, some less. And when they did meet with it an omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating. And Moses said, Let no man leave of it till the morning."
So what you have here is what they ended up doing, and God gives them instruction through Moses.
Right.
The
Would
Lord
you
commanded.
mind explaining an omer, if that's okay? You gave me a great definition before we started.
Omer is a unit of measurement, and it seems to be the case in this particular text that he's saying that it's basically a day's worth of a day's ration of food.
Right.
Some other translations use the word quart. I don't think that an omer is equal to a quart mathematically, but it gives us some general sense of.
That's helpful.
It gives us a general sense of around how much maybe a day's eating would be for them. And the reason why we put this idea of trusting God for our needs is His desire, is that He told them to just gather exactly what they needed for that day. When Jesus prayed, "Give us this day our daily bread," He was kind of alluding, I think, back to this idea that I have for today what I need for today, and that I'm trusting God to provide today, and He did, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm not going to put more emphasis on what He provides me than I do on Him. I'm not going to trust more in what He provides me than I do in Him. So I'm not killing a bunch of quail and I'm not gathering up more than I need in the manna, because not trusting Him because He might not do it tomorrow, right? I'm worried, or I want to take advantage of other people and sell it. I'm going to do enough for today to make it for today. Sufficient is the day. Right. So tomorrow I'm going to trust in God again. Yeah. And I think that seems to be His desire, is for them to not get ahead of Him or to get behind Him, but to trust in Him and to walk with Him and to depend on Him and not what He provides. Does this sound like this could apply?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So I get so stressed about tomorrow, and I feel like I have to be sometimes, because I'm like, well, I'm glad God's providing for today, but what about tomorrow? I need to start thinking about tomorrow.
It is not responsible, Miles, for you not to have a plan for retirement.
Yeah,
It's not responsible for us.
Yeah.
You're not and here there is a tension here, right? Because the Bible does say a righteous man has a inheritance for his children's children. So there's something to managing our stuff and to preparing for the future and all that. But remember, they're in a situation where they have to depend on God. God's leading them from slavery back to a promised land, and He had over and over again said, "I'm going to promise, I'm going to provide for you. I'm your God. You'll be my people." This is His thing to them, and what He wants more than any of it is He wants them to trust Him, and we have a hard time with that, don't we?
Because I think I'll be less stressed if I worry about tomorrow. But actually what I'll be is less stressed if I focus on God today.
Right.
And all that He's given me
that's
today.
Good.
And then I don't have to worry about tomorrow.
That's a tweetable moment just there.
But then He gives me everything I need today. Today is sufficient, and God is always sufficient. He's given me His grace. That's His new morning mercies every day. So when I wake up tomorrow, He's still going to be the same God.
Right.
And then the next day and the next day, and He's still providing this manna. And I can just trust that and be at peace.
And that leads us to this last point, right? Where he says, the last point being trusting God for our needs will work out for us. What do you think?
Yes, sir. So we see this in verse 17.
Chapter 17.
Chapter 17. Ooh, that was a good catch. We should go to chapter 17. Turn our Bibles there. All right. Chapter 17, Exodus 17, starting in verse 1. We'll go through verse 6. And all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of Sin after their journeys, according to the commandment of the Lord, and pitched in Rephidim, and there were no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people did chide with Moses and said, Give us water that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, Why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted for water, and the people murmured against Moses, and said, Wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt, to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst?
Yes, you figured out my plan.
Right.
You're exactly right. Yes.
And Moses cried unto the Lord, verse 4, saying, What shall I do unto these people? They be almost ready to stone me. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go on before the people, and take with thee the elders of Israel, and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river, take in thy hand, and go. Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel.
So the problem before was we don't have any food. We're so hungry. Now God provides for them, and they're learning to trust him every day, right? Then they're like, I'm not thirsty.
Oh, thirsty. Right. Yeah. Can I have some water with this manna?
Moses, where's the water? Why did you brought us here to die? You brought us. That's what you wanted.
Figured out your plan.
This whole time you wanted us to die. And, of course he's saying, why are you chiding me? Why are you tempting the Lord? And the truth of the matter is, Miles, it's kind of an understatement. After watching the Nile turn to blood, locusts, boils, you don't want to be tempting God.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. They've seen his power.
Yeah.
They've seen what he does.
Yeah. So, but that's what happens. They do it. And then God, tells Moses to smite the rock, and he does. And God provides the water. Right. So I think kind of the point I was trying to make, and this whole lesson is about God's provision, and how God provides for us and what that does with our relationship with him. I think, like we said, the first thing we need to think about is if I'm complaining, that needs to be a dashboard light warning saying, are you not trusting God?
Right.
I think that, that God is not going to be a debtor. The Bible says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging for bread. God is a God who provides. And even if like the worst thing happens, the economy, it all goes to just to waste, and we just don't have anything. The truth of the matter is, if I die, to be with God is to be far better. Heaven is not a place of lack.
Yeah.
So even if it may seem like I'm not getting what I need, even physically on this earth, you think about martyrs that, been persecuted, been in jail, not had food, been mistreated. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Yeah. And ultimately that lack will be taken care of. But even that kind of trump card that trumps all of our desire to say, God's not going to be, to trump the idea that we think God's failing us. The truth of the matter is, it doesn't even get to that place very often. Like God over and over again provides for his people. My God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory. That's not something that we don't have practical connection to. God really does take care of us.
Right.
And when we trust him, he tends to provide.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of God we have. And sometimes we may be in the midst of now the thing we have a hard time with is what? Distinguishing between needs and wants. It's what is it? Man, that Wi-Fi in the plane.
I need this.
It gets to need really quick.
Yeah.
And how do I know that? Because my expectations lead me to complaining when they're not fulfilled. And so, the truth of the matter is, we just described problems in marriages. We just described problems in parental relationships. We describe problems in between employees and employers. Like, all of us tend to trust in things other than the Lord.
Right. And it's encouraging how committed he is to them. even through that
even
provision.
Through it. Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, what if they just asked humbly for it before they even complain? Because the first thing seems like, Lord, you're not providing. And like, he does. And I try to get in the Lord's mind. It's an impossible thing to do, but it's just him saying, you can ask for water. I've given you everything else. But because he's not rewarding their complaint, he's just saying, I'm taking care of you, and let me show you how I'm going to take care of you. And it's encouraging in some sense to see the Israelites, because it makes me feel like I'm not a complete weirdo in the sense of like, oh, I do the same thing. But it should convict me also to move forward and see, okay, I don't want to be like the Israelites. I want to.
And why is it so easy for us to see the problem when we're looking through the window, but have a hard time seeing it in the mirror?
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. Right. In the story goes, man, these people they're just like not grateful. They're not, these are not people that I want to hang out with. These are.
Well, it's easy to see the speck in their eye, but then like the giant log in yours,
But I get there,
right?
And sometimes even like the good Christian part of us, we know that like complaining out loud is unbecoming, so we couch it maybe in a prayer request, or we, you know what I mean, or the other thing is we say it in here and in here, and then something happens and it comes out, and we're trying to keep it in, but out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks, right? And so that's again why I think the dashboard lights analogy is so important. That like probably it's the abundance that's coming out. So it's the overflow. So that means what comes out is usually a picture that there's a whole lot more of that in there.
Yep.
Yeah. So we've got to be able to deal with that on our own and to root that out. And so what's the antidote? What is the antidote to a heart that doesn't trust and is complaining? What's the antidote, Miles?
I would say there's a sense of contentment. If you go to Philippians of just saying, Paul says, I know how to be abased, I know how to abound. He says, and then he later says, I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me. And that's not a flex on him, like, look what I can do. He's saying, no, Christ takes care of me. He's strengthening me. So, and when the Israelites start thinking that, things actually start going well, and they have no reason to complain, because like, well, God's always providing. It's a shift in what we're thinking about.
The flex would be, I can do everything on my own, right? And God's God's lucky to have me.
Yeah.
Right. That would be the flex. But what Paul says is, it's by Christ that I can endure all of this.
Right. And be content and actually joyful through it. And once you have a content heart, and then you don't have a reason to complain. And that's where the point I want to be, where even if I search for a reason to complain, I can't find one because I got too many blessings around.
Right.
And it's just a change, like you said, in the heart. And I think it's encouraging in some sense that I can work through it, because as soon as that complaining comes out, that needs to be a warning to me, like you said, a dashboard light of, okay, I got to get this taken care of. I think sometimes I think in just our culture that we say, it's okay if I complain, I'm just venting,
Right.
But that should be a sign, hey, something's off. Have you talked
about
it?
It's even described as therapeutic.
Right.
And it's like, actually, I don't know that it is.
It doesn't make anything better.
Right.
I never leave better after I've complained. I actually leave worse. And I actually leave others feeling worse as well. And like, just like Moses, he's not feeling better after they're complaining. He's like, stop chiding me.
Why? What did I do?
Yeah, he's like, I got you guys out, and I didn't even do anything. It was the Lord.
It cracks me up because they're like, there's even moments where they start remembering, like, do you remember the onions? They were so good. And they like describe this salad bar back in, Egypt.
Yeah.
When we know like what was going on in Egypt, they were getting beat. They were they were having to get straw. Like they remember the onions.
We have to get the straw.
They don't remember the straw. They remember the onions,
Right.
And so now you're counting your blessings. Like now you're counting former blessings.
Yeah. When you were a slave.
Yeah, exactly. And don't you remember like you're sacrificing to win in the you're going to a land of milk and honey. So forget the onions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's good.
So yeah, there's a lot there. I do think this is a really applicable lesson, and at every age range you can go to where that age range tends to find lack of trust in God. You know what I mean? So I think that's a real good application to this lesson. So hey, thanks, Miles. Teachers, do a great job this week. Have a good one.